1 unit's on track. We got the vehicle. It's I-75 northbound. Just got on.
That would be in the number 2 lane or the number 1 lane. That's a flag to you.
Scenarios, we know that she documented it. She actually sent a letter to herself while she was on the airplane, talking about meeting somebody and what the outcome of that meeting was going to be.
Just be upfront with the information that you know. You indicated that you didn't know her at all, that you had never even met with her when this first came up. And now you're talking about having sex with her, recording things and then deleting them. And I guess from my perspective, if you can try to understand it.
She didn't know where Sonia was. She didn't know who had her phone. She didn't know what "out here" meant, or why Sonia kept writing as if she was running out of time. What she did know was this: something was very, very wrong. And then the messages stopped. Who sent Sonia to Florida, and why did she go? Her name was Sonia Esmond Martin. She was 32 years old. She was a musician from Portsmouth, England, a pianist, a singer, a teacher, a woman who wrote her own compositions and performed them for the people she loved. She flew to Florida on the 10th of October 2025 for what should have been a 2-day trip. She never came home. Portsmouth sits along the southern coast of England, a historic port city, salt-aired and steeped in culture. It's the kind of place where the sea is always somewhere at the edge of your vision, where old naval ships sit preserved in the harbor like sleeping giants. Sonia grew up loving music the way some people love breathing. She studied it. She lived inside it. As a pianist and singer, she didn't just perform other people's songs, she wrote her own. She gave lessons in piano, guitar, and flute. She posted recordings of herself singing online, her voice quiet and earnest, filled with something fragile and real.
I cannot run away from the things that they say. I will stay.
That was Sonia. Gentle, apologetic almost, always hoping you'd find something in the music worth staying for. She had been with her partner Stevie, an artist, for nearly 15 years. The two lived together in Southsea. They had a cat named Meryl, whom they both adored completely. People who knew them described their relationship as deeply devoted, a partnership built over a decade and a half of shared life. But Sonia also carried something heavier. In the years before her death, she had been struggling seriously with her mental health. Those closest to her knew how dark things had sometimes become. They had worried. They had tried to help. And in the months before October 2025, things had actually seemed to be improving. She appeared more stable, more like herself. If you've ever had someone you love suddenly seem okay, and then something terrible happens, you'll understand exactly how devastating the next part of this story feels. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and whether you'd heard about Sonia's case before today. Her loved ones believed the worst was behind her. They were wrong. On the evening of the 10th of October, 2025, Sonia Esmond Martin boarded a flight at Heathrow Airport. She was wearing a floral dress. She had a return ticket booked for just 2 days later. She had told people she was originally planning a trip to London. Nobody knew she had rerouted to Florida. Nobody knew why. As far as anyone around her could tell, she had no connections to anyone there, no friends, no family, no obvious reason to cross the Atlantic at all. She landed at Gainesville Regional Airport that evening. Someone was waiting for her. Automatic license plate reader cameras captured a black Jeep arriving at the airport to collect her. The cameras recorded the plate. Investigators would later trace it directly. But in those first hours, nobody knew any of that yet. What happened next unfolded across the weekend of October 10th through 12th, inside a rented Airbnb in the small town of Reddick, Florida, a quiet, rural property, remote, surrounded by open land, far from neighbors, far from help. Her return flight was scheduled for October 12th. She didn't board it. When Sonia failed to return home, her partner Stevie raised the alarm immediately. He described her publicly as the love of his life. He posted on social media desperate, frightened, asking anyone with information to come forward. He explained that she was vulnerable, that she had been struggling, and that her disappearance made no sense to anyone who knew her. Hampshire police were notified. Then, Interpol, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, began tracing her movements from the moment she landed. What they found in her bank records was immediately strange. Just after midnight on October 11th, within a 10-minute window, at least 7 attempts were made to charge Sonia's debit card. Every single one was declined. Then, the following afternoon, a payment of $1,200 went through on a second card. The transaction was linked to a business called Solver Wolf's Roadside Assistance. Investigators contacted the owner. His name was Dwain Hall.
Hall, H-A-L-L.
H-A-L-L.
Dwain told detectives he remembered Sonia she had called for help with a flat tire, but her card had been declined, so he never responded to the service call. He said he never met her, never saw her, had nothing to do with whatever happened next. But there were problems with that story. Significant ones. The Airbnb in Reddick had been booked under Sonia's name. When investigators arrived, the property had never been cleaned after her stay. Inside the rubbish, they found a receipt for a shovel. The shovel itself was gone. There were food wrappers, a Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup, sandwich packaging, a container of strawberries from a gas station, all purchased using the same bank card. One neighbor reported seeing a black SUV parked outside during the weekend of October 10th through 12th. On the back of the vehicle was a sticker, "Emergency Roadside." Every transaction connected to the Airbnb purchases led back to the same name, Dwain Hall. On the 17th of October 2025, deputies from the Marion County Sheriff's Office pulled over a black Jeep on Interstate 75.
Air 1 units on track. We got the vehicle. It's I-75 northbound. Just got on.
LP, I think you're in the number 2 lane, we're in the number 1 lane. That's a black Jeep.
Behind the wheel was Dwain Hall. Beside him was his longtime partner, Ginger, who had recently undergone a double lung transplant and was on her way to a medical appointment. While Ginger was taken to hospital so she wouldn't miss her post-surgery care, investigators sat down with Dwain. And the story he told them was extraordinary. He spoke of a mysterious client named Harold, possibly a fake name, investigators suspected. He described a secret storage barn somewhere in Florida, filled with expensive cars belonging to celebrities. He mentioned Tom Cruise, John Travolta. He claimed he had been hired to do mechanical work on these vehicles and had signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, preventing him from revealing the details. He said Harold had paid him the $1,200 using Sonia's card number, read aloud over the phone, and that he had no idea the card was connected to a missing woman. He said all the digital evidence of his work had mysteriously vanished. Calls, texts, emails, all gone. He said that on the drive home from Reddick, he was followed by a grayish-beige sedan and spent an hour parked on a remote dirt trail in the woods near Marion Oaks just watching the road. That stop in the woods. Investigators already had his phone's geolocation data. They knew exactly where he had been on October 12th. And in those same woods near Marion Oaks, search teams had found something. On October 17th, the same day, Dwain Hall was pulled over. Officers focused on a patch of ground that appeared to have been recently disturbed. They uncovered a shallow grave. Inside it was the body of 2-year-old Sonia Esmond Martin. She had suffered 4 stab wounds to her torso, bruising across her body, and an abrasion on her neck. Her death was ruled a homicide. Next to her body, investigators found the label from a shovel, the same model purchased on October 10th, the same shovel later found in Dwain Hall's garage. Forensic testing found blood on the shovel blade. DNA confirmed it matched Sonia. As the evidence began stacking up, investigators were also uncovering something far darker about how Sonia and Dwain had first made contact. As detectives continued questioning Dwain Hall, his story changed. And changed again. At first, he denied ever meeting Sonia. Then, he admitted driving her from the airport. Then, he claimed she had been Harold's client, that he had simply dropped her somewhere and left. Then he admitted they had both been at the Airbnb. Then he claimed they were never there at the same time. Then he admitted they were. Each revision came only when confronted with evidence he could no longer deny. But there was something investigators had that Dwain didn't know about yet. On his phone, retrieved through a full forensic extraction, was a video. In the recording, Sonia was sitting in a chair inside the Airbnb. She was still wearing the floral dress she had worn boarding her flight at Heathrow. Her hair was disheveled. Her eyes were filled with tears. She kept her head lowered. She spoke quietly, carefully, as if afraid of saying the wrong thing. In the background, Dwain's voice could be heard, repeatedly asking her whether she had requested this, whether she truly wanted what was happening. The video had been deleted 3 seconds after it was saved. Forensic Recovery found it. And it wasn't the only thing investigators found. Through Sonia's messages and digital history, detectives uncovered 2 years of online communication fetish forums, detailed conversations about kidnapping, torture, and death between Sonia and a user who called himself Dark Wolf. Dark Wolf was Dwain Hall. Prosecutors believe that during those 2 years of communication, Dwain was fully aware of Sonia's mental health struggles and deliberately exploited her vulnerability. When investigators discovered that Dwain had sent what he described to a friend in Ohio as a special package shipped from Florida just days after Sonia's death, they traced it. Inside, they found a bracelet and a knife 7 inches long with words engraved into the blade. Dark Wolf. Pointy end goes in the other guy. Forensic testing found Sonia's blood and DNA on the blade. His friend Rick later told investigators that, despite how Dwain had phrased it helping Sonia, there was no ambiguity in what he believed those words meant. He believed Dwain had killed her. Dwain Hall pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree murder and kidnapping. He is currently being held without bond. Unless a plea agreement is reached, his trial is expected in 2027. British authorities deeply involved in the case because of its international dimension reportedly withheld certain evidence from Florida prosecutors until the possibility of the death penalty was formally removed. If convicted, Dwain Hall faces life in prison. The case continues to receive significant attention from both American and British authorities because of its brutality, its international reach, and the deeply disturbing nature of what prosecutors allege took place.